It's been a minute since we've seen Reggie and Urban Sentinel, but I'm going to bring him on. He's got a great show here that's been going on, and he had a gentleman who was helping him out for a while, but then we also were on hiatus. He had some health issues, and of course, a lot's been going on at Pod TV and with the center and everything like that. But I'm glad to see Reggie is back in full force and ready to do some shows and even talk about what he's had going on in his life and everything like that. So glad to see you, Reggie. Glad that you're back here, ready to do the Urban Sentinel. And I understand you're going to be having your magazine going and everything like that. So we're glad to see you back because we know that life can take sudden turns and everything like that. So I know that even has impacted my own life. I actually just recently lost a aunt of mine. It was actually the youngest aunt of my mom and everything like that. But she just passed away. She tried to do some homeopathic care, and that didn't go all that well. And by the time she got to the hospital, I think it was a little bit too late, and in terms of her health and everything like that. So we'll actually be having a celebration of her life probably on this coming Sunday, if I heard
Hmm.
my family and everything correctly. But yeah, it's been a rough couple of days and everything like that. But life is gonna keep on going and everything like that.
That's right. Yeah. Well, to my audience, I'm glad to be back. I've been gone for over almost a year now.
Yeah.
Be a year in July. I had to take off because of some health concerns. Be honest with you, I had colon cancer, and the reason I'm mentioning it is because colon cancer is the number one cancer killer in America now,
Wow.
especially among young people. But I want to tell everyone, if that's over the age of 50, if you haven't had a colonoscopy, you need to go have one. Just to be on the safe side.
Right.
Luckily, I was able to catch a mines in the early stages. Still had to go through the surgery, the chemotherapy, and all that kind of stuff. But some people haven't been as fortunate to catch theirs in the early stages, and it's not to the fourth stage, or it's moved throughout the body, it's getting into the bones or the lungs or the heart, the liver, things of that nature. So, I want to encourage everyone to go out and get a colonoscopy. Everybody gets kind of scared talking about colonoscopy because I mean, yeah, they pushing a camera up in your behind your butt. Okay, simple as that. But go through it. You're gonna be glad you went through it because at the end of the day, it's gonna save your life. So just be on the up and up. I've always with colonoscopies. I've been taking them since I was 50 years old, and
Well,
I've been pretty up on my dates. And this just happened to be routine colonoscopy, my time. But every time I had taken them over the years, I was always finding polyps, precancerous polyps, and I knew I was on the edge. I was close. Okay. And I thought the day I went into the doctor in April last year that, hey, I'll come out, get my colonoscopy. They'll check me out. I'll be back out the door happy, and go another 5 years or 10 years. And then they've changed it to.
right.
But it just happened. It wasn't my day, but, you know, I was glad I got in there when I got in there, that I didn't put it off any longer, because if I put it off for maybe another year, I've been in deep doo doo.
Yep, and
You
they
know.
say that the colonoscopy is something that everybody needs, as well as the prostate exams and a number of
Yeah.
other things that are very important to have.
Hmm.
They might be uncomfortable, but they are very important to have because without them, you don't know the health of your inner workings and everything like that. And that is
Hmm.
definitely part of our lives and definitely all along those lines. So it's definitely something we've got to have going on a
Yeah.
regular basis and everything like that. And I see your
Hmm.
good buddy Richard has joined us, so he did make it in. So we'll bring him
Hmm.
in and y'all can talk about, and I might join y'all for a while and some of the things going
Okay.
on and all along those lines. So I see Richard's here.
Hmm.
I was going to ask you, did you watch? Speaking of what's going on in the world, I saw that the person that claims to be leading the country, even though I think that that's somewhat of a joke, that he was at the Knicks game and apparently he brought them bad luck because he didn't know that he was not supposed to sleep during the game because he is getting up in age himself. He's about 80 years old, and they did say that he was asleep in the game, and there was even camera shots of him being
Hmm.
nodding out and nodding off, even though it was a very intense and good game. I watched just about the whole game, so I don't know how he was sleeping because it was a very competitive and entertaining game, but maybe that wasn't his real thing, even though he claims, having worked in New York and having several businesses in New York, that he's a longtime Knicks fan. But as a longtime
Hmm.
Knicks fan, I don't know about going to sleep at the game and everything like that. But I've also heard, and I know Richard probably talked about this, the fact that they were tickets they were very expensive, and apparently they couldn't do the watch parties because sometimes you can't get into the arena, the Madison Square Garden, to let you have watch parties and have big screen TVs and everything, and you can watch the game outside. But because of the motorcades and his presidential security, they did not allow that to happen and everything like that. And I think I've heard that the tickets might have even gone up in price a little bit as well. So I do know it's not cheap to go to an NBA game. I went to a couple. I know I went to one in Charlotte, and I might have been the one in Raleigh. There was like an exhibition game back when Doc was playing, and that might have been when he was with the Hawks and everything like that. So I've been to a couple of games, not a lot of games in my lifetime and everything like that, but they were affordable the times that I went. They weren't in the $7,000 range, which is what apparently this game was at and everything like that. So these games are getting really expensive. So I don't know whether folks can afford that. Maybe you and Richard can afford that. Y'all got those big bank accounts.
Yeah, right.
Well, I can afford regular season. When it comes to playoff time, I kind of bow out because they jack the prices up if the team makes a playoff, and the prices keep escalating through each series.
Right.
And they push me away. Then 'cause I just I enjoy going because of form of recreation, things like that. But when you start tearing up my wallet, then I'm gonna back out on you.
I
'Cause
don't blame. I
it's
don't
not.
blame you on that and everything like that because I had also heard I was doing a tour with some of the lawyers and everything like that earlier today, as I was telling you. And one of the young ladies told me that she's going to the World Cup game in Miami. I think it's between Cape Verde and Uruguay, and I think she's only paying like $1,500, which is still beyond my budget and everything like that.
Mhm.
And I think she got it on a lottery or some system where she was actually at a discount rate and everything like that. And I had thought I'm not a big hockey fan, even though we do have a team here in the Carolinas and they are in the Stanley Cup down 2-1. They'll actually be playing their fourth game later today in Las Vegas, and hopefully they can even up the series. But I've thought about going to some Vegas games, and I know my brother used to go when they were the Ice Caps before becoming the Hurricanes. That was the
Mhm.
other semi-pro team that we had here way back when and everything. But like you said, the further you go, because that's the equivalent of the NBA championships, the more
Yeah.
pricey those tickets are. So I don't think I'll be spending a couple of $1,000s to go watch people skate around in a rink and fight each other and everything like that. And it does look entertaining on TV, but I don't know that it's 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, whatever the ticket prices are, worth it for me.
Yeah. I'm out of there when you start getting them prices up there. Sayonara. I'm gone. Catch you on the back end.
Well, so what's your take on our on this man? And I'd love to hear you and Richard thoughts. And I know you got plenty that you're going to talk to him about, and I'll bow it in a second and everything. But I might probably toward the end. But what is y'all's thoughts about this man that claims that he's the leader of the free world and everything like that? Because as I was talking to the show before you, we've decided that he's having a retrofit because they say about that old saying that when people are young, like 6 going on 25, when they are too mature, but you can also go the opposite way. So she was saying that maybe he's 80 going on 3 for the terrible threes and everything like that. So it does sound like he's regressing instead of progressing. And of course, this is the man that said we were not going to have any wars. And I think we're in the middle of, if you want to count Uruguay and Russia, even though technically that's not ours, but we're in the middle of like 4 or 5 wars. If you want to go Venezuela, Uruguay, Iran, a couple of other ones that are going on. So what's going on with this man? It sounds like, isn't it Richard and Reggie? Isn't this the man that said he's not going to have any wars when he came into office and everything like this the second time? It seems like
Well,
he's in 3 or 4.
you can take this one, Richard.
No, I mean the moment they pass a $1.4 trillion spending bill for the Pentagon, that they were going to go to war. The it doesn't benefit the Pentagon to get a $1.4 trillion budget because basically you're just storing weapons in a warehouse and you can only store so many weapons. They literally what they're not showing is how many jets they decommission. So somewhere out there in the Arizona desert, somewhere there's like hundreds, maybe even thousands of military planes that have been decommissioned because they need to make room for the next $34 million jet that they're buying. So they take the last $30 million jet off the runway and replace it. But you can only do that so much. Some of that money you got to burn. And now they've got a war and they can burn through $2 billion a day. At that rate, they can justify another $1.4 trillion next year. So that's the first thing. I look at, you have to follow the money first.
Right.
And then after the money comes the power. One of my favorite lines I have two favorite lines from my two favorite movies. My first movie is The Wizard of Oz.
Mhm.
And my favorite line from The Wizard of Oz is when the wizard puts they finally get the heart, symbolically. And he
Right.
puts the heart on the Tin Man. And as he's doing that, he says, hearts will never be practical until they can be made unbreakable.
Mhm.
And then the Tin Man says, yeah, but I want one anyway. And to me, I didn't understand that line until I was an adult. But the whole idea about a heart being so fragile that everybody has one, even though it's fragile, you still desire it no matter how much it hurts. So that's the first line. To show you how I am, my second greatest movie is Scarface, from The Wizard of Oz to Scarface. And my favorite line is in Scarface when he was telling his friend that they went through the Mario boat lift and got their green cards together and they got into the drug business together. He noticed that his friend was chasing women. And he told him, wait. He says, first you get the money, then you get the power, then you get the woman. And that's exactly where Trump is. That's where all those guys are. They got the money first, and the money got them into the power. And now that they are into the power, the women represents everything that they're lusting after. So for Stephen Miller, he wants a world of lily white men with bald heads that look like aliens. So everything that's coming out of the White House from an executive order that's DEI this or anti-DEI that, that's all Stephen Miller and the white supremacists. Everything that's going to war and blow stuff up, that's Pete Hegseth and his crew. Trump don't know a war from constipation. He doesn't know the difference. He literally does not know. But he gets up there and he talks. And then the rest is political power. And those that want the political power share just enough with Trump to make him believe that he's all powerful. They know he's not, but I'll give you the perfect example, and then Reginald, I'll let you chime in. But you guys remember when Trump stood on the podium and he said, "I could shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue and not lose any support"?
Right.
That wasn't Trump's words. Those weren't his words. What I can tell you, I feel like I was in the room when this happened. His handler showed him, look, we got this thing so rigged. We got social media. We know how people are thinking. We know where everybody's going. We know the next move they're going to make before they're making it. And with all this information that we have, you are going to be so popular that you could literally shoot someone. Now, this is what his team told him just before he got up there and spoke. They said you could literally shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue and not lose any supporters. And Trump stuck his chest out, and that went right to his head, and he went right from that room right to the stage and to that microphone and said, I could shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue and not lose any support. You know how your parents used to tell you, if you hear something in the house, don't go telling it out in the street?
Right.
That little toddler don't know how to keep stuff to himself. And the moment you tell him, he can't wait to go and show it to his friends and stick his chest out. And that's what he had on this last little interview with a girl from Meet the Press, Kristen
Walker.
Yeah, he acted like a little toddler when he went storming off because he didn't get his way. So that's it. Trump doesn't want the money because he doesn't understand money. He doesn't want the power because he doesn't know what to do with it if he did have the power. All he wants is his little binky, his little pacifier, his little whatever it is, that a little toddler would want. And you give him that and a nap and change his diaper, and I guarantee you that somebody's on his staff to wipe his behind at the end of the day because he can't wipe his own butt. So there you go. That's all I got to say about that.
Well, the biggest thing is it's obvious he's got some health issues, okay? And he's never going to own up.
Not to cut you off, you missed a word. He's got some mental health issues.
Okay, and health. He got both of them.
I don't make light of mental health. I'm just saying, not only is it's it's one thing for it to be undiagnosed, but it's
Mm-hmm.
undiagnosed and untreated. And that's really where he's at a disadvantage. They may be treating him at night. That's where those things in his hands are. They may be giving him an IV overnight. But for it to go undiagnosed and untreated, it's unfair to him. You shouldn't. Whoever
But
is his
Richard, to your other point and everything like that, one of his handlers is not really qualified as a medical expert because the person running our medical department, and I mean, he's got a rich history in the Democratic family and everything like that. But does Robert Kennedy really know that much about medicine and everything like that? He was a denier of COVID and a lot of other things. So, but that's who we got in charge of the medical department, RFK Jr. and everything like that. So I'm going like, wait a minute, does he really know anything about what's going on in that space?
Well, they know what's going on with him. He's never going to admit to that he's a very sick individual, but he's double daring his people to mention it, okay, to say anything about it, because it's all about power.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to be seen as weak. So being sick to him is being weak. So that means that he definitely doesn't want J.D. Vance to have to take over for him, for a select amount of time. It's just that he doesn't want to be seen as weak. And he's willing to wake up, well, not wake up, but to die to show the world that he wasn't weak.
Yeah.
And that's the whole problem with it. Those guys live off power. When you're a billionaire, that's what you live off. You live off the power because you got so much control of everything that you think running the world is your job.
Well,
and let me just say this one thing. I was thinking the other day, it would be nice if we could come up with a secondary source to Amazon. Okay.
Yeah.
He's made so much money off of Amazon and that operation that it's crazy. What if 2 or 3 other companies could come along and duplicate what he's doing, maybe not on the level he's doing it on, but on a smaller level, and take away some of his business to bring him down a couple notches, and that's what we need. There's no competitiveness out there because FedEx, they suffering because of Amazon, and UPS is suffering because of Amazon. So in the U.S., the post office, we won't even talk about them. But it's nothing out there to bring that company down to his knees a couple notches to let him know that he's not God with all.
Well, nothing yet. I can tell you, I know that our tech company we're just one of the many companies, but it's interesting that you transition into Jeff Bezos and Amazon. And most people, if you guys familiar with the Amazon origin story, how Jeff Bezos started the company in a garage in Seattle, right? That's the typical white boy started a multi-billion-dollar company, bootstrapping, right? Because that's the story that all of them want to tell, that they were bootstrapping and had little of nothing. What people don't realize is Jeff Bezos was already in the millions. He was working for a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund. So it was his job to research the next trend. So Jeff Bezos is going through the next trend, and he notices that what was called Web 1, that was everybody was just getting the internet. And in Web 1, you could only read. Remember, you guys used to sit there and wait 5 minutes for the web page to load, and just so that you can hit print MapQuest direction. That was the hot thing, that I could get the directions to your house, and I had to read them line by line, but that was better than having a map that you had to go through. So in Web 1, you could own it was called read only. And what became the big company during that period? AOL.
Right.
Because nobody really understood the internet. And I thought AOL was the internet until I got AOL and realized that AOL was just the landing page that you get on before you get onto the internet. And once people realize, wait a minute, I can change I don't have to always turn my computer on and land on AOL. I could have it land on anything. Once people realize that, suddenly, where's AOL? It's gone. But about that exact same time, we went from Web 1 to Web 2. On Web 2, you could read and write. Remember, you've got mail. When that started, then came email and Hotmail and Yahoo Mail, and then came Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. But Jeff Bezos saw a report that Web 1 going into Web 2 was going to grow at a rate of 2,000%, like for 10 years straight. That's supposed to be massive growth. And dude said, you know what? We need to get in front of that. He left that multi-million-dollar job that he had, put on a hat like he was some entrepreneur, flew down to Texas to get a wink $300,000 loan from his father-in-law, his mother's husband, and or what is it? What is it called? Whatever the mother's name, the stepfather. Yeah. So his mother's husband. That's all to create the story. And while he was in Texas, he's got the moving company driving from New York with the furniture to Seattle, and he doesn't even own a house yet. They haven't even bought a house. He's going to call the moving truck and say, I'll give you the address when you get there. And they found a house a couple days before the moving truck got there because he was looking for a house with a garage so that he could create the story that I'm just a startup. This dude already had the inside scoop that this company would be big, and he made it look like it was a pure startup. It was a setup, and it grew just like it was planned. Well, along comes Web 3, and that's where we are right now. Web 3 is read, write, and own. And what that means is in Web 2, if you go to a website, you've done this, you go and look for shoes on Amazon. What happens when you get back over to Facebook? Ain't nothing but ad for shoes. Why? Because Amazon done already sold your information because they own it. They done sold your data to somebody else, and everybody's getting a cut of your search history because you don't own it. But in Web 3, you will own it. I don't have the card. Let me see if I have it. It's a black card. It looks like this. It's around here somewhere. But this is this is how the internet now looks. You store your data on a card like this, and I have to plug into a Web3 website. And when I do, it reads my data when I plug in. And guess what happens when I disconnect? When I disconnect, my search engine stays with me. So I own it. That's how we take over. We have to get off of this thing about trying to destroy AOL or get back with Amazon or all that stuff. The new thing is Web3. And what we have to do is understand how Web3 works, because nobody is taking over that. And what they don't want is for everybody to suddenly shift to Web3. Because if we did that, Amazon would be just like Blockbuster Video when Netflix showed up. Where's Blockbuster now? And why is Blockbuster not here? Because Blockbuster had those VHS tapes, and everybody done switched over to streaming.
Right.
And so, when's the last time you looked at a CD? Or DVD player, or a reel-to-reel, or 8-track, or any of that stuff, because that technology is gone. The new technology is Web3, and if African Americans can use our ability to hop on the trends faster than any other culture, which is what we do, if we hopped on the Web3, we could own it, and that's what we got to do.
But you gotta get people thinking about that, okay? Because first of all, we don't have the funds in our community to execute, and we gotta be a community of executors. Okay, we gotta start coming up with funding to execute some of these plans going forward, so we can get a piece of the pie. And that's our biggest problem. We getting left behind on everything. You know, I mean, they had this Asian dude get on the internet the other day talking about, because Jamal Bryant was calling for a boycott of Asian products and restaurants and all this kind of stuff and businesses because of the verdict in that young man's killing. And he just talking about, he just plain out come out talking junk to the black community. What we need is our girls, young ladies, women probably, need to start going to school and learn how to be nail techs. Okay? They need to learn that trade. We don't need to eat Chinese food all the time because it'll kill you. Eventually, it's going to kill you because all that MGS they put in and stuff. So we got to bring our community together and build something that we all can participate in and support each other. And that's why we're so behind the eight ball on everything that comes out. We're behind.
But to that point and everything like that, because here in Durham, Anthony Montague, who is a developer, is building Hayti Villages, which is right near Hayti and right near Sanford B. Warren. He's got some other partners as well. I'm not sure whether they are black or white partners, but they're a major thing that we have not paid attention to is real estate and everything like that. Because definitely, even down in Atlanta and everything like that, I know that Ron Roadfox was a major developer in his company, Roadfox Construction Control, I think it was called, or Construction Control. But he started that back in '76, and his daughter Joy is running it now and everything like that. But it's been a major construction management and construction company that's been around for 50 years now and everything like that. But I don't know that we're doing enough to highlight the things that we do own, like construction management companies and things like that. And we definitely, to your point, Reggie, don't have enough. We like the benefits of being the entertainers or the athletes, but there are very few of us that own teams, even though I think that there are a group, because actually the Road to the Apollo, while you were off, they came by and they're doing this boost bus and everything like that. So there is a young lady, Kwanzaa Jones, and her husband, who is of Hispanic origin, Jose Feliciano. He sounds like the singer, but it's a different name because that can be a common name in Hispanic culture. But they just recently bought the San Diego Padres, making him only the second Hispanic owner of a Major League Baseball team, and her the first African American woman to own a Major League Baseball team and everything like that. So, I mean, Tyler Perry is wonderful, and he's doing some great things in Atlanta. I'm not always a fan of all of his movies and everything like that, but why do we have to be stuck with just one Tyler Perry? We need more and more, because there wasn't just one Disney. There were several Disney companies that were there when Disney was around. So we probably need more people in the music and movie industry that are actually developing their own enterprises and not just depending on those that are established.
Yeah, because let me say this real quickly, Richard. Now you can jump in.
Sure.
You look at BET,
Mm-hmm.
you look at Oprah Winfrey Network, which both of them been sold. The only one hasn't sold out is TV One with Kathy Hughes.
Right.
Kathy Hughes, because the Oprah Network and the other network, BET, not going to do nothing that benefits the black community. But we need our own news stations, outlets. We need more information being brought into the community, which we're not doing. All we're getting on TV One now is reruns of Good Times and all those old shows.
Because
nothing creative.
What's the brother that owns the Weather Channel? Because it's a brother that owns.
You're talking about Brian Allen?
Right. Yeah, Brian Allen. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he's not doing good. And he went to CBS after they put Steve Cabell off and bought a block of time.
Right.
Paid like about $150 million for a block of time where he's going to put his programming on there. And honestly, if you haven't watched the show yet, you're wasting your time if you watch that comedy show that he has. It's not that great to me.
Yeah. No, I've seen. I mean, I've seen snippets of it, and I mean, I respect what Byron Allen has done.
Yeah,
he's hustled his way up. I believe he's done a great job. You know, nothing against the fact that he's married to a white woman. I know that there are. I've seen these celebrities that are interracial, whether black male, white female, or black female, white male, that they get into certain rooms that they wouldn't normally get into because their spouse gets them there, right? And then once they are there are some of them even, what's his name, running back for the Eagles,
Jason, no, not Jason.
Oh, have mercy. I know who you're talking about. I can't think of his name right now.
Yeah, but he's you listen to him politically and what he says is like it's right down that conservative. He's definitely not coming over here on the black hand side, right? So and they temper what they're going to say, and then when it's necessary to carry the I'm the black guy kind of thing, they can do that as well. But at the same time, they're over here in this room, and therefore the stuff that they're producing is not going to really threaten the power brokers. And I was listening to an interview with Quinta Brunson, and this guy, he does this wonderful like a podcast, video podcast, and looks like we lost.
He might have stepped away for a minute.
Okay, we have we Quinta Brunson. She did this in interview, and she was on this show. This show is called House Guest, and they had a little game, like what show from the 90s is the number one show. And the guy, he said the Cosby Show when he flipped it around, and she flipped it around and said it was Fresh Prince. And then her response to like, oh my God, you created you picked the Cosby Show, and you, there was a certain sense that she was in a position that she couldn't say the Cosby Show was a great show. I get that Bill Cosby was a horrible man, right? But that didn't stop the Cosby Show from being a great show. It did everything that it was supposed to do. It put HBCUs on the map. Finally, in the entire network of shows could be Black from the top all the way down, and white people were co-stars. Every white person that came onto the set was a co-star. It wasn't, for once, we were the stars of the show, and it went tremendously well. And then, okay, Bill Cosby turns out to be a creep, but that didn't stop the show from being great, its impact from being great, and all the things that it did from being great. Now, Donald Trump is all of that and then some, but he gets to be president right now, and Bill Cosby gets shoved to the back of the room, and Bill Cosby has done his time. Right. Bill Cosby was found guilty, went to prison, did his time, and still is being punished for it. And Trump got 34 felonies and videos with him doing all kind of crazy stuff that ain't gonna ever get out. Right. And yet he can make it to the top of the list. And so, yes, we got stuff that we need to work on. But the number one thing that we need to work on is messaging. And I told this brother this. I said, the problem that Black folk have is we got really poor marketing. We, as a people, we don't have like a brand. Our brand does not withstand scrutiny. It's like, like, imagine this. Can you imagine somebody getting in, let's say, what's the car that was a Ford Pinto, right? You get in a Ford Pinto and somebody says, I just bought a Ford Pinto. You go, oh man, that's a crappy car. That car will blow up and kill you. That's true. But because the Ford Pinto has the name Ford on it, it can withstand scrutiny because that name is great. Now imagine you buy a Bentley, $300,000 Bentley, and somebody says, man, that Bentley is crap. And suddenly, because that person said the Bentley is crap, nobody wants to buy a Bentley. And if you ever see how a Bentley is made, bro, the leather in a Bentley is selected from cows that grow at a certain altitude because their hides don't get stung by mosquitoes, and it's perfect. That's the leather that's in a Bentley. That's why that joker $300,000. It's worth it. We are like a Bentley that's being advertised like a Ford Pinto. And because we don't advertise ourselves. So I said this, if Black folk had got off the first slave ship with a slogan and a jingle, like, we are Negroes, if we just had a logo or an ad campaign or something that stopped us from allowing white folk to say how bad we are. And then we buy into it. And the best we can do is make it cool. So
trying to make it cool. But Richard and Reginald, the other question I was going to ask y'all, and I know you got some things to say about this, Reggie, is the other thing that we do sometimes is that things that are our highlights, things that were a highlight of our society, we let somebody come in, like the current president, and basically reconstructed it in his image. Because we all know, anybody that knows anything about the history of DC knows that Benjamin Banneker designed that whole area and everything like that. And now we got Trump that's got this promenade that he's trying to build around the Lincoln Tower and the Lincoln Pool and everything like that. Of course, he's got this whole ballroom that he's built. He's got the UFC. I mean, he is totally turning it into the Vegas of the Northeast and everything like that, because he did have some development in New York, and I think he had some development in Vegas as well. So he is totally created in his image, when we all know the history of it and know that the imagery that was originally there was Benjamin Banneker and some other great African American designers. I can even think of my uh, fellow Dermite who passed away not that long ago, but helped with the African American Museum, Phil Freelon, and stuff like that. So we have got our footprint all over DC, including Howard and a number of other places. But he is definitely recreating it in his own image. Because every time I turn around, I know he was trying to do some things like change the color of the pool over there at Lincoln and do this promenade and do all this other craziness and everything. You're right there in the middle of it, Reggie. What the heck is this man doing? Because every time I turn around, I've been told, I've not been to DC in a long time. I need to get up to DC to visit not only you, but some other friends as well. But I've been told it looks like a wrecking ball that has been laid on DC and everything like that.
But if you look at this particular time, because they're having the UFC wrestling match this weekend, you got the National State Fair coming up and all this kind of stuff. The area around the Capitol honestly looks ghetto. Okay, I hate to just say it, but that's true. When you look at the White House, which is the people's house, not his house,
right,
and you look at that monstrosity that he's put up in the backyard of the White House, it's a shame. It's a shame.
Yeah.
But that's what they want. Again, money, power.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care what we might think. They don't care what the average older person who remembers DC in a certain way, the area down there being historic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, I told somebody the other day, it would not surprise me if he don't tear the White House down and try to rebuild that.
I wouldn't be surprised if he did do that, and I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't try to. And this would really make a lot of people upset, because I know that it's got a reputation similar to Harlem and everything. But I'm not going to be surprised if he doesn't try to tear down the Adams Park district. So that's not going to surprise me in the least bit, even though that is a very much.
Well, he's never been up to Adams Moore area, and he's not going to do. But right where downtown is, the federal land, that's what he's concentrating on. It's just like, okay, yes, DC crime was up. Yes, DC crime is down there, especially murders and stuff like that. Assaults, robberies, petty stuff has gone up. But it's not because of the National Guard. Right. Because he brought the National Guard in and they stayed downtown in the federal area. Washington police, they have brought the crime rate down. Okay, and then there was a study that came out a couple of weeks ago that stated that there was never a crime problem in DC. Mm-hmm. It was a manufactured crime problem. But he wanted to be looked at as being a savior. Oh, I come in here and I clean up DC and all this kind of stuff. That's the attitude he had. You know, but right now you have people, 20% of black men voted for him, so you got 20% of the population out of the black population out of it that think he done something, you know? I don't know.
Well, one of the things, I've said this before, and it's a quote that has been floating around online, is when a clown moves in the palace, the clown doesn't become king, the palace becomes a circus. Mm-hmm. And that's what he's done, is he's turned the White House into a circus. Mm-hmm. And only, people who love a circus are the ones who are cheering. And so he's got his base. And that's what we're headed to. There are two things that I believe is going to happen. I think after the midterms, the Republican Party is going to they're going to use Trump like the toilet paper that he is. He's a utility. He serves a purpose. And he's got them into these positions of power to get the money that they've done the money grab. So they've got their tax breaks, they've got their war. In order to do that, you got to give the white supremacists some. So that's the anti-DEI stuff, because all this stuff about Like, say for instance, they could have attacked immigrants and left DEI alone.
Mhm.
They could have increased the military budget and left DEI alone. They could have, given the 3 trillion tax break and left DEI alone. They didn't have to bother with any of this.
He's frozen, but I understand what he's saying because they came in. Okay, go ahead and finish up.
My point is, they could have got everything they wanted on their list. Why the attack on black people on top of that is because of Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller is a devout white supremacist, and because he's in the presidency or in the White House, and he's Trump's right hand man, basically is what is he, chief of staff or something like that? But because he's in that position, he's in Trump's ear. So when Trump signed all of those executive orders, especially the one to let all the January 6ers go free, Trump didn't know what he was doing. He doesn't even read these executive orders. So these people shove that stuff in front of him, and that's why there's the attack on black. But my point is that that's going to be the first thing that stops after Trump leaves office, because Trump won't be able to get anything done. And those executive orders that he wants to push are going to get pushed against by Congress, because they're going to start writing laws to make certain that those executive orders don't go through. And that's the worst thing that the Republicans want, is for something to become permanent. And Trump is messing around.
Yeah, well, that was the whole thing with the Meet the Press interview, because the woman, Kirsten Walker, was actually pressing him on this notion of people that were supposedly wronged by the press or whoever else getting these funds. And even some Republicans are going like, wait a minute, this is going a little bit too far and everything like that, because they're thinking that that's a little bit too much money to be freewheeling and just given to anybody. I mean, yeah, they want to give it to some of the January 6ers and other folks as well, but they don't have like a true system as to how they want to handle it. So they're getting some pushback, and that's what Kirsten Walker was going like, are you really going to give this money to these people? And if so, how are you going to vet who gets it and who doesn't get it?
Yeah, and Trump was actually saying that they need it because these people are they were wronged. He said a couple of them committed suicide, and now when he's saying, okay, because they committed suicide, you had 4 police officers who literally, died by suicide as a result of the trauma that they went through. So you're going to give the people who caused them to kill themselves, they get the money, and the excuse that you use is because 4 of them killed themselves, and they killed themselves because they got caught doing wrong. And as they said, don't do the crime if you can't do the time. They did the crime and found out they couldn't do the time, so they killed themselves. Now, it's sad for the families and all of that, but you don't give them $1.8 billion and say, oh, here's to make up for your pain, the guilt that you're feeling right now over what you've done on your own to yourself. You get $1.8 billion and sympathy.
Yeah, that's just crazy. Hey, Reggie, I was going to throw it back to you on something that you mentioned at the beginning and everything like that, because I don't really believe a lot that RFK Jr. says, but he did say something that I think it was on Monday that actually made sense, and it comes back to the military, because he said that probably about 72% of our young people could not serve in the military even if they wanted to, because of the state of health, where a lot of people are obese, and you just went through your own health scare and everything like that. So he was talking about the fact that we need to have some sort of health program that is going to be effective and everything like that. And I do think that that is a truth, that in America, a lot of people are living off of fast foods. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I will go to a DoorDash and some of the other fast food restaurants just as quickly as anybody else and everything like that. So it is become an epidemic, to use that term that we use quite often during the pandemic and everything like that. So what is your take? Because he did make that statement, I think it was on Monday, where in that statement, I do believe he might be onto something, where he was talking about that our military would, if they had been drafted, it would be hard to get people that could even serve, because they are a lot of people that are not the right qualifications that you need in terms of weight and other things.
Well, healthy, even though Michelle Obama push eating fresh foods and eating right, eating healthy, it still doesn't happen. You know, because you go into the convenience stores now, they're selling fresh foods, you know, processed food and everything. And you go to the gym, you're gonna see more older people in the gym than you're gonna see younger people.
Mm-hmm.
So they're definitely not exercising. Now drinking with the Gen X, the drinking has come down some, smoking has come down some, but still eating a lot of processed foods can hurt you. And that's one of the things I'm trying to get into my diet on a constant is watching the processed foods that I eat and trying to eat more healthier than eating fresh foods. And so the only point he's making that's that I can agree with is the fact that you got to be healthy to be in the armed forces, okay?
Yeah.
And a lot of these kids, and a lot of kids ain't interested in going in the armed forces anyway. That's why they got been to draft back in because of the simple fact that there's no large interest there, again. So, I mean, you go to these restaurants, the kids are there, you see them in the mall eating, you see them in the convenience store buying stuff. That's why they call it fast food. Okay, you don't have to go home, wait for your mom to cook, or you go home and cook. You just pick up something and grab it and keep it moving.
Well, one of the things, and it's a good friend of mine here, and this is if you're going to hear this more, it's called participatory government.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a good friend. She's like I consider her an older sister. Like she ran for mayor, I think 3 different times here in Jacksonville, and but she has a PhD in participatory government and participatory government and participatory budgeting. It literally says, it's designed that everybody participates in the entire decision-making process. It's like the way we have it right now, 535 men in Congress says, this is the way you're going to be, take it or leave it. But participatory government would say, here's $100 billion to be spent on healthcare. And that splits up to $2 billion to each state. So every state gets $2 billion. And that money gets spread out. Now, equally, not every state is going to use it. So not every state uses it. So they get to trade their health budget for something else. They turn that money in and it goes back around and get redistributed. And so, like say, for instance, farm subsidy money gets split up between every state. So $100 million for farm subsidy money. But Florida is not a farm state. So it would give its farm subsidy money to, Virginia in exchange for Virginia giving it back its infrastructure money. And those kind of dollars can go back and forth and we can negotiate. But bottom line is everybody participates. And that's what I believe that we should be focused on is creating a governmental system that by design, everybody participates. And right now, like for instance, why is it that being registered to vote is not automatic like a social security card?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why do I have to register to vote? I don't have to register I don't have to renew my social security card every year. I got one social security card and never have I had to renew it.
Mm-hmm.
So why do I have to every year renew every voting cycle renew my voter registration card? My voting rights should be just as solid connected to me as my social security number. I should have a social security card and a voter registration card, and that's it. I just show up and vote. Well, no, you gotta register. You gotta count these beans in this jar here.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically where we're at right now. So
yeah, I mean, why do you have to register to vote?
Well, that goes back. I believe that goes back to 1877, and
it does. It does. I mean, why can't you? The systems can be made easy to do. Okay, you got a social security card already, like you said, that's a lifeline card. Why can't you use your social security number? Don't have to go register to vote, but declare a party affiliation when you go to vote.
That's it. In fact, that's
all you need.
I just had a really good conversation here. I'm here in Jacksonville.
Mm-hmm.
you see the shirt that I have, Latoya
Mhm.
William Shelton. Uh,
Right.
Latoya is African American woman. She's an attorney and she's running for judge in a particular district. And this race here in Duval County for judge, well, Duval County, first of all, is a nonpartisan. Um,
Okay.
so, like, say, if two people run, and the first runner up and the second runner up both could be Republicans or both could be Democrat. It doesn't matter. It's a nonpartisan race. So technically, we don't even have to have parties. But I represent a company, well, a new organization we started called One NPA, One No Party Affiliated Voters. So it's NPA Jacks, but we're going to duplicate it throughout the nation. So it'll be NPA DC, NPA Atlanta, and NPA ATL, those kind of things. As we bring on different cities by identifying the voters who are neither Republican nor Democrat and not even independent. Some people says, well, that means you're independent. No, it means I am not in the system, as you said it earlier, Reggie, about registering as a party affiliation. Now, there, number one is I don't believe you should be excluded from the voting for a party, meaning my vote should be sacred whether I choose a party or not. It's easy to say that if I choose to be Democrat, I can't be Republican. I get that. But I should never be denied the right to vote. And that's what the primary system does. And that's why the registering the vote thing happens, is because by registering the vote and keeping it tied to party affiliation, like you have to register as Democrat or you have to register as a Republican, by forcing people to register, it hands the power of the voting system over to the parties as opposed to the people. And George Washington was literally the first and only no party affiliated president we've ever had. He didn't have a party. And in his farewell address, he warned that the party system was going to take over our democracy because we would end up handing it over to someone who really didn't care about democracy. Now, it took 250 years for it to happen, but here we are.
Mhm.
That's what George Washington warned. Somebody who's running for office, you got somebody who's running for office and doesn't care about it. And Mark, while you were out, I was just mentioning that the challenge that we face is that the parties have taken over our voting system.
Mhm.
So when the primaries say, well, you can't vote in the primaries unless you are a member of a Republican Party, you can't vote in the Democratic primary unless you are a Democrat. So I'm a no party affiliated voter. So every 2 years, I gotta. It's like me being a devout Muslim, and I don't eat pork. But you're telling me in order for me to vote, I gotta take a bite of this bacon sandwich, and that's what I have to do with my right to vote. Because if I don't choose a party, I don't get to vote, and it should be the other way around. There should never be anything that stops me from voting. So I should be able to show up to the voting booth and at that moment be asked, do you want a Republican ballot or a Democratic ballot? I shouldn't have to register as to whether I'm Republican or Democrat or not. I can only choose one party to vote in, but at the moment I vote, I should be able to make that choice. And if I did that, the whole election system would change because they don't know how their attitude is going to affect my vote. But if I have to register first, then they already know whether or not to speak to me.
But
And
one of the
that's what
things
our
that but
system
one
is
of the things that I'm seeing, I don't know what y'all are seeing, but I know that even here we had a part of our Pod TV network that ran for a county office in Wake County and everything like that, and he feels that the party itself gave a lot of empty promises, and I've heard this from other people as well. So I'm hearing a lot more candidates that are are going independent, and we're seeing that both on the Republican and the Democratic side. Because I think a lot of people are getting frustrated by the party system. Because even Steve Rao, who is one of our main news anchors, is saying that he is probably, and he's been a lifelong Democrat, is going to switch to independent. And I've seen more and more people that are switching to independent. Now he's a Indian American and everything like that, not Native American, but actually from his family being from India and everything like that. But I am seeing more and more people that seem like they are wanting to be independent. I'm even seeing that, to your point, Reggie, among the Gen Z and the young people, where they don't necessarily want to have a party affiliation for whatever reasons.
Yeah, well, like I said, we definitely got to change the voting system. We got to work on it because right now it's not working for us. Now, next week I want to talk about Black civil rights, and the reason I want to do that is because the young man Carmelo Anthony, he got 35 years. 19-year-old young man, 35 years.
What did he do? What was it that he got 35 years for?
Murder.
Okay.
Killing the other student down in Texas.
Now, is he related to the Carmelo Anthony, the basketball player, or no relation at all?
Now, his sentencing guidelines stated 5 years to, I think, 99 years, something like that. I thought maybe the judge might lean more towards 10 years, being that he's a teenager. And this would just be a life lesson learned, okay?
Right.
But to give that young man 35 years, 35 years. Okay?
When he comes out, he'll be in his mid-50s?
Yeah. And probably got to serve at least half of that before he can go before the parole board.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw in another case, there's this Texas football player. I don't know if you guys saw that. I didn't catch his name, but I think it was Texas Tech or something like that. But he was suspended by the NCAA or whatever the league, college league is, for gambling on his own team, right? So he got suspended. It went to court, and of course, he claimed he had a gambling addiction and he was going to get cleaned up and whatever the case is. The judge said he could go back onto the team. So we can't let the white quarterback, lose. Now, do you think? Number one is I didn't even look at the race. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I don't think this is not a black dude that's going to be.
It's a white football player. But that just shows, the difference. Then down in Texas, Anthony, he had an all-white jury. They only had 3 blacks in the jury pool.
Oh, wow.
The prosecutor struck all 3 of them out.
So when they were doing the picking the pool, they eliminated the 3 black jurors.
What happened was wrong. Okay, however you look at it. Okay, somebody lost their life, but it's got to be a rehabilitation phase, put into this situation too. But I think what's happening is that whenever white folks can control the narrative, they're going to control it in such a way that it's not going to be fair to the black community.
It's not going to be fair at all. I know we're wrapping up and everything, but I do have to tease both of you and Richard and Will and everything as we wind down, because I just happened to check the score, and I think it's 3-1. In terms of the Hurricanes, it looks like they're winning, so they may even the series if they can maintain the lead. But a lot of these teams have actually gotten a lead and then lost the lead. But I was just wondering, is it just me, or is a lot of these sports games, and I know that David comes down to what you're talking about with the football player, rigged, and does rigging still happen? Because I remember even the case way back when of Pete Rose and even some of the boxers back in the day and everything like that. But when I see some of these series that look like they should be over fairly quickly and everything like that, and they wind up going 6 or 7, because I actually think the Knicks Spurs series will wind up going 6 or 7. Yeah. It does lead the question as to how much of this is partially rigged by the refs and other people because they want to make the money.
I think a lot of it is. Here's the key. I think the wrestling, what is that? Whatever the WWE has already told the sports league that this is kind of the norm, because everybody knows that wrestling is fixed. Everybody knows that. They know that those are not real hits. That's not real blood. It's not real pain. But people still pay all this money for the theater. And to a degree, you could see that football is kind of going that way too, that it's less about the sport and more about the show. And eventually, um, like we are watching happen with mainstream media, is like they slowly are turning up the heat and getting the tolerance for news to be skewed, right? Like you CBS is skewing toward Trump, but CBS is still going over in that direction because it's okay. So my point is that yes, I believe that the somewhere along the way, there's something that's, if it's not the coach, it's somebody up high up that's passing it down to make certain y'all better not end this 7 game series in 4 games. We got, if we're making $100 million a game, that's 300 million y'all throwing out the window. You better play this thing down to the wire and get all of that. Next thing you know, Steph Curry can't seem to drop a three no matter how hard he try. You really? But I think I'm grateful for the players that play with integrity, right? But I got a feeling that there are a couple hacks out there that you see this brother, he could catch that. He's wide open. He could catch that ball and run it on into the end zone. And, oh my God, it went right through his hands. Really?
That happens.
Yeah. Those two, some of it is real. I would never say that like the NFL is officially rigged, but I wouldn't be shocked to find out that somewhere along the way somebody has been fixing games. So I'd be like, oh well, that I'm not shocked at all to hear it.
Yeah. Well, guys, look, I just wanted to come back tonight, get one show under my belt after being gone almost a year. We're gonna shut it down now, but we'll be here every Tuesday night except for the 23rd. I'll be out of town the 23rd, but we're gonna keep it rolling and everything. Like I said, next week I want to look at the civil rights in the Black community, especially when it comes to reform for our youth. Okay, we can't allow the white community, white prosecutors and judges to railroad our kids into prison for long terms. Like I said, what happened should never have happened. It was wrong. But why 35 years for a 19-year-old? Why take his life away from him completely?
Right.
That I can't understand. So I want to thank everybody for watching Urban Sentinel live tonight. We are in the process of getting the magazine back online. So looking for writers and stuff. We need like 3 or 4 more writers, I believe. And we just want to keep it moving. Keep it moving.
You can put me down for that because I'd love to.
Oh, okay.
From the writing aspect, and okay. One of the things that before we jump off, I wanted to touch on it briefly. We've got to maybe even dedicate an entire show to, if Mark comes back on, I'll mention it again, but to the Jobs Act, 2012 Jobs Act, because it totally reformed the way that investing is investing. And so, Mark, what I was saying when you linked out a little bit there, we've got to really talk about because the Jobs Act totally reformed that investing is. And if we were to take advantage of what the Jobs Act means from group investing and ground floor investing, crowdfunding, we could change literally our whole community could change in less than one generation, because we could go from being consumers to being investors practically overnight. And when you turn $2 trillion of consuming power into investing power, it literally goes from being 2 trillion to 6 trillion like overnight, because you'll get far more from investing than you ever will from just pure consumption. That I think we need to be talking about as well. So we can do that in a later show.
Okay, sounds good.
That'll be a great show. That'll be a great show, and I definitely look forward to it. And I know we're getting to wrap up, so I'm going to get us on out of here. But by the way, that is my training is in journalism, so I might have to get back and dust off my pens in addition to my audio stuff that I do here on Pod TV. So I might have to get to do some writing for you as well.
Sounds like a plan. Well, look, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank you guys for being on with me tonight. want to thank everyone for joining in, and we'll see you next week on Urban Sentinel Live. Take care.
Next week,
Have a
guys.
good
Peace.
week. Okay.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.